And actually, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because I know me.
So that's our life mission. That's the McShin's mission.
So you don't have to understand my boundaries to respect them.
Well, no, I'm the president and co-founder of McShin, a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders.
How do you go about fixing the damage in the trust between the family after you get out?
Okay, I gotta work on that.
Celebrating my 6 months. Didn't have a cake.
Yeah.
Gosh, you showed up.
Well, they got to do it from there. We go. Hey, folks, John Shinholzer here from the McShin Foundation. I'm live from Henrico West Jail, Perham Road facility. And we're going to bring you another wonderful Hope Shot speaker meeting tonight. And once again, the sheriff is inviting us into her facility. We're at the West facility. We were at East last week. It's glad that we can be inclusive for you fellows. I would like to remind the audience and those listening that everything we do here from McShin is all donations and volunteers. So feel free to hit us up and make us a contribution to help fund these operations. And before we get into our program tonight, I want to thank the sheriff once again for inviting us out here, and what an honor it is to be in your facility carrying this message of hope. Sheriff?
I am grateful to be able to partner. I tell people all the time, the teamwork makes the dream work, right?
That's
and
right.
We can't do anything by ourselves. We got my higher power, God. I think God places people in my lives for a reason and a season. So when John offered this opportunity to come into the jail to share with us, to be a part of our program, and I jumped on it. And the magic word was free. But the thing is, it's more than just bringing speakers to you. It's about connecting. It's about showing you that what you're trying to do can be done. People have done it, and the fact that there's support beyond these walls. You have support in the community. Trying to connect you to that support when you walk out here. So with that, I will turn it over. We'll get started.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. Give her applause for that. That's good that she let herself in here. Now, as y'all realize this for the first time, I have an accomplice helping me. You always got to have an accomplice, anything you do in life. But we have a co-host for this show, Marshall Tucker, and he's going to help us each week. And in the event one of us can't make it, the other one's going to pull up the slack. Marshall, come on into our viewer zone and introduce yourself. Say hello.
Hello. My name is Marshall Tucker. I'm a person in long-term recovery, which means I haven't found it necessary to use in 34 years.
Woo!
The reason I like to put that out there is because if Marshall can do it, you can do it. My message today is to value your life. Value your life. When you get here, you get to a place like this, and you stay here for 2 or 3 weeks, things started to brighten up. Things started to look better. You get work release, or you get to be trustee, and that kind of thing like that. And you tend to forget what got you here. You tend to forget your value. And that's the message for today. Me, I value my life on a daily basis. That helps me, helps my family, and it helps the people around me. This is what this thing is all about. Bringing a message of recovery, bringing a message of life, saving lives and healing families. So value your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. Now look, there's a whole world out there in recovery should you choose that when you leave up out of here. This week in Richmond is the national conference for the National Alliance of Recovery Residences, which is like the National Sober Home Association. And 2 years in a row, they chose Richmond to be the home site for their national conference. So, when we have out-of-town folks in town in recovery, I like to bring them in here and be our guest speakers. And the first speaker I got, he's a wonderful man, a real stalwart in recovery. And I know a little bit about him. I know a lot about him, actually. I know he thinks he knows where the best pizza in Connecticut is. which he might. I don't know. That's the jury's still out. But he's been where you're at. He's been in these seats, and he's risen above it. And now he's just an incredible man. He runs a wonderful recovery nonprofit in Connecticut. He really busts his butt to help people. And he has a real heart and passion for recovery. And Rick, come on up. Let's give Rick from somewhere in Connecticut. I forget the town you're from. Rick. All you, baby.
All right. How you guys doing? Ladies, gentlemen. My name is Rick DelValle. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I haven't used since February 5th, 2008. And I was somebody who, I was a chronic relapser, and I was in and out of jail for many, many years. I did a lot of bad things. And, I look at my time in jail I used it as a very positive experience. I turned a negative experience into a positive experience. And so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in New Britain, Connecticut. And I had a rough childhood growing up. My father wasn't really a part of my life. My father had 16 kids by 5 different women. And him and my mom were never married. And so my mom struggled, and I believe she did the best that she could. And, growing up, there was a lot of violence, mental, physical, sexual abuse that was going on. And, I look back on my life today, and a lot of my pain was caused by my father not being there, because, every son wants his dad there, and I carried that pain for a lot of years, and when I was about 13, I started smoking pot. And, I graduated to the harder stuff. And then from about the age of 18 to like 25, I was shooting heroin and, doing everything. I was like a garbage head, but I was in a lot of pain. And then I started getting arrested, the usual stuff. I dropped out of school. I jumped from job to job to job. And, one of the things that my father did give me was a good work ethic. I was always a hard worker. I always, went out and found a job, but I would lose it quickly because I would steal from my employer. And also I started businesses. I started doing construction work at an early age. And I started a few construction companies and did well with that. And, I don't know how I stayed out of jail as long as I did, but, when the walls started crashing down at about the age of 26, when the arrests started coming in, I finally went to jail when I was about 30 years old, and I got sentenced to 5.5 years. And I had cases all over the state. I had like 200 charges. I had like 5 different courts I had to go to. I got sentenced. And then I was in jail already sentenced, and warrants popped up. And when everything was said and done, I got like 5.5 years. And so that was like 1994. And I remember being locked up in prison for the first time. I was scared. I was just a skinny little white boy, and, I had never been to jail before. I had, did a little bit of time in, county jail, but I had never been to the prison. So I made my way up to the prison. And I remember that. Now, along the way, I've had some defining moments that helped me in my life. And, I'm a man of God. I have a relationship with God today. And I believe God is the one that's got me standing here today, because I put myself in some pretty bad situations. I should be dead. And so there was this defining moment. I was locked up in prison, and, I was still doing the same things. I was still getting high, trying to find ways to get high. And so I had went to court on a warrant, and it was this guy who was in lockup, and he left his bag behind, and there was some money in the bag. So I took the money, I shoved it up my butt, and I went in front of the judge. I got sentenced, and then I went back to the jail, and I did what I was going to do. I was going to find some drugs. And so my cousin was locked up at the time too. Now I'm 30 years old, he's 20. And I remember we were looking for drugs. We couldn't find any, so we had some weed. We're out in the courtyard smoking weed. And I never forget this moment. The sun was setting, and I was just sitting there on this picnic table thinking, about my life and where I was at and what I was doing. And I just had this moment where, you know, everything my cousin was telling me, I just looked at him and I said to myself, I said, you know, that was me when I was 20 years old. He's saying all the same things. And here I am 30 years old doing the same shit. And I don't want to live like this anymore. And I remember I went back to my bunk and I was on a top bunk. So I climbed up on my bunk and I asked God for help. You know, and I didn't really have God in my life at that time because I was trying to kind of avoiding him. But I asked him for help and I started crying and I stopped using. I just put the drugs away. I stopped using. I got a job in addiction services and, you know, I started doing meetings and Bible studies and I started put my energy into everything I could that was positive, you know, and I ended up getting out after about 3.5 years. And yeah, after that moment, it was, I forget the day it was, but that moment I stopped using drugs and I got out of jail and I didn't use drugs for almost 7.5 years. You know, so I got out, I went to the halfway house, I got a job. I was going to meetings, you know, I was doing all those things that I was doing in jail. But the one thing I didn't do was I didn't deal with the pain that was inside of my heart. You know, I still had all that untreated pain. And, you know, so I'm out there, you know, living life and life's getting good. I got, you know, I started a business again. I was doing really good. I bought a couple houses and, you know, I had beautiful girls and, you know, the only thing I didn't have was me. You know, I didn't really know who I was. I didn't have no real strong supportive men in my life. And I ended up drinking again. You know, I went back out and drank. And that lasted for about 7 years. And in that time, I was just in and out of rehabs. And, you know, I had gotten arrested a couple of times. I did like another 45 days in jail. I didn't really commit no serious crimes. But, you know, and God willing, because I did some stuff that I should have got caught. If I would have got caught for, I'd probably still be in jail today, you know. And so anyways, I had met this girl. And I was in love with this girl. And, you know, at this time I was trying to get clean. And she was in a time in her life where she just started using. She just started smoking crack. And I loved to smoke crack. And her and I went on this crack run for like a year. And, you know, as we all know, it didn't end well, you know. And so her and I were together, and it was like our lives were a mess, and we were using, and she got pregnant. And so, you know, we tried to stop using. We both tried to stop using, but we were so caught up in the grips of our addiction, we couldn't stop using. Like we would stop for a couple of days, and we went to the doctors, and she ended up losing the baby. And, you know, I was just in so much pain. I felt like, you know, I wasn't a good person, you know, and she ended up taking off and she went on a run. And I remember it was February 4th, 2008. And I was by myself. And the plan, I was going to kill myself. And this wasn't the first time I was going to kill myself. Every time I got high, I felt like killing myself. I felt like dying. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. But so the plan was I was going to kill myself. I got a bunch of drugs. And I didn't end up killing myself. I got like a bunch of crack, some dope. You know, I got some works. I was shooting dope and drinking. And I was a mess. But I remember that night, all the drugs were gone. And you know, thank God I had some dope, and it was dope. It was heroin back then. It wasn't fentanyl, you know. So I had some heroin, and I shot the last couple bags, and I was able to just like calm down, and I was sitting there, and I was talking to God. I was on my knees praying to God. I was like, God, I don't want to live like this anymore, you know. And I knew what it was like to be in recovery. I knew the life that I could have, so I had that little bit of hope, and next thing I know, I woke up. It was like 6:30 in the morning, and I woke up and I called this guy up. And I said, hey, and every time I would call this guy, this is a guy that never gave up on me. Every time I would call him, he would say to me, are you ready yet? And I said, yeah, I'm ready. He said, all right, pack a bag. I'm going to pick you up and take you to a meeting. So he packed the bag, he picked me up, took me to the meeting. And so he made a phone call to another guy, and the guy, all right, bring him in. He brought me to a sober house in New Haven, Connecticut. And so he paid my rent for a couple weeks, and he's just like, listen, man, you know what you need to do. I'm here for you. But if you use, I can't help you. And so I said, all right. So I went to the sober house, and I was ready, man. I was ready to do whatever it took. Like I didn't want to use anymore. And I was in a safe place. I went to a sober house instead of living by myself like I did a lot of the time. And I got there, and that girl called me. She called me like a week later. And it's like, where are you? Because we had this apartment together. She's like, where are you? And when are you coming home? And I'm like, I'm not coming home. I can't live like that anymore. I love you, but I can't live like that anymore. And so I ended up staying at that sober house. And, I looking back, I remember being there and just saying to myself, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And in this process, before I went to that sober house, I had went to this rehab, and it was this counselor named Lenny. And I had been to this rehab 4 times. And Lenny was just this hard man. But if he liked you, he would like, he would love you, and kind of like a hard way. But if he like sat there and swore at you, you knew he cared about you. And so I was sitting across from his desk, and this was one of these defining moments again. Sitting across from his desk, and I'm like, Lenny, I can't stay clean. I don't know what to do. Maybe I need to go to long-term rehab. And he said, Rick, he said, you've been in every effing rehab. You've been in every jail in the state. He said, if you don't pick up that first hit of crack, you don't never have to smoke crack ever again. And I was like, holy shit. And the light switch went off for me, and I always remember because he had this voice like this. And so that was like my one of my tools that I had whenever I would, because I when I was at that sober house, I didn't have a car. I'd walk up the street, and it was in the hood, and people, hey yo, and I would be like, nah, man, no, and I would hear Lenny's voice, and so I'm in the sober house, and I surrendered. I was like, what do I need to do? Because here I am, 43 years old, and the best decision I made for myself was I stopped making decisions for myself. And I let somebody else make decisions for me, and I got a sponsor. First time I ever got a sponsor and actually used them. I've had a sponsor in the past, but I called them like once a year. There was no connection. And then I built a network. I built a network of positive men, and I just surrendered to the fact that all that pain that I was carrying around me, I had to let it out. And I did that through, I wrote the steps, and I went to therapy, and I did service work. One of the cool things I did when I was in that sober house was because I don't relate to people well. I'm like this introverted person, and so I'm in the sober house. Right? I love dogs. I love animals. So I asked the owner of the sober house. I said, "Can I get a dog?" And he said, "No, you can't get a dog." And I said, "All right." So there was this kid in the sober house. And one day he came to me. He said, "Hey, I go to the dog pound every day, and I walk the dogs. You want to go with me?" And I said, "Yeah." So I went with him, and I had to do this orientation, and I started walking the dogs, and I started meeting people, and these people would come in, and they had this organization. It was called the Friends of the New Haven Animal Shelter. And what they would do is they did adoption events, and they would get dogs adopted, and they would raise money. And it was a really cool thing that I got involved with. I ended up being on the board of directors, and I helped dogs get adopted. but it helped me in a way that it was like having a dog, but I had a bunch of dogs. And every day I would go down there. And if I was having a bad day, I would walk the dogs. And then being of service, you know, making coffee, you know, whatever I was needed for, I did. And I started to get rid of a lot of that pain that I had inside of me. And, you know, I stayed at that sober house for 18 months. And it was probably one of the best things that I ever did. And I had a sponsor, and I listened to my sponsor, and, you know, life got really, really good. I started getting really, really good. And so I left the sober house, and I moved in with this guy, and that didn't turn out too well. He was supposed to be somebody that was clean and sober, but he wasn't. And you know, I found a nice little in-law apartment, and I lived there for a couple of years, and I started my own business again, you know, a little contracting business, and I was doing quite well. And then I decided I want to go back to school and become a drug and alcohol counselor. And so I went back to school to become a drug and alcohol counselor. And along the way, I was playing co-ed softball. So I was playing sober softball, but I played in this other league too. And you know, I met this woman, and she played softball too. And you know, the thing about it was, I suck at relationships. You know, I really, really do. You know, and I've always chosen the most effed up women, right? So if you put me in a room with 100 women, okay, 99 of them are normal, and then there's one in the fetal position, you know, like this, and sucking on her thumb, that's the one I would choose. You know, and you know, that's just the way it was, because I never had a relationship with myself. And it's still to this day, I still suck at relationships. I'm not good, you know, and I'm sure my wife will agree with me. And so, you know, I meet this woman, and she was pretty normal, you know. And at this point, I was thoroughly because I'm in recovery, right? And I date this chick, and I didn't know it, but she was on methadone, and she was that one that was in the corner sucking on her thumb, right? I didn't know it. And so I ended up getting arrested behind it. It was a terrible, terrible, toxic relationship. And so after that, I was done. I'm like, I'm not dating any more women. I'm done for, you know, maybe 10, 15, I don't know. But so a couple of years later, this woman, I meet her playing softball, and you know, we hit it off, and she was pretty normal, you know, and I was scared shitless of that. I was scared of this woman because she had her shit together, and, you know, I didn't have to fix her, because that's how I validated myself as a man. I fix things. That's what men like to do. We like to fix things. And so, you know, her and I date for a couple years, and then we get engaged, and we get married. And at this time, I'm going to school. You know, I went back to school, and you know, another defining moment in my life is here I am. I'm 49 years old, and I'm going to the venue where we're getting married at the day before our wedding. And my wife, I'm with my best man, and she's with her bridesmaid. And so, you know, I'm in the parking lot, and she pulls up, and she's crying. And I'm thinking, you know, why is she crying? You know, and I'm figuring maybe she's crying because she's got to marry me. She's stuck with me for the rest of her life. And so she goes, "Come here, I want to talk to you." And so she has this box in her hand. She has this little wooden box, and it's got a Red Sox logo on it. I'm a big baseball fan. And she goes, "Come here," and hands me the box. And I look inside of it, and it was 2 pregnancy tests. She was pregnant with my son. And I had no idea. And I just thought, like, wow, I'm going to be a dad. And she's like, "Listen, you can't tell anybody because it's still early in the pregnancy." And that lasted for about 3 seconds, because I told my best man, I'm like, "She's pregnant." And he's like, "Holy, that's great." And I said, "Yeah, but I don't know how to be a father." And he goes, "Yeah, you do. Your father taught you everything not to do," because he knows my story. And so, we got married the next day at this beautiful venue, and I never forget. She came walking down this hill, and we're married right on the ocean, sunset, and it's October 5th, 2013. Better get that date right. And it was just this beautiful. The weather was beautiful, and she's walking down, and she looked more beautiful than any woman I've ever seen. And she's walking down with her father, and I'm picturing that baby in her stomach, and I'm like, my life's about to fucking change, And it was just a moment that, like, if you would have told me this stuff was going to happen to me in recovery while I was laying on my jail cell, on my jail bunk like this, picturing a life that I would want to have, I couldn't even fathom this is what I was about to get. And so we end up getting married, and we have our son 9 months later, and that was just an experience. No drink or drug ever made me feel that way, seeing my son being born. That was just an amazing experience. And when he was born, he was in the hospital. I was in the hospital, and he spent a couple days there. And I was so scared that they were going to come and tell me I had to leave, that I couldn't be there because of the person I used to be. So that was like, I was waiting for that moment to happen, and it didn't happen, Today I know I deserve to be a father because I'm a great father, When my kids go to sleep, I'm there. When I wake up, I'm there. I coach football. I mean, there's just so many things. So she has my son, and I'm in school, and I'm doing this year internship at this treatment center, and I'm not really feeling, how these programs are run. I didn't really like the way that they, were helping people, and so I made this decision. I don't want to be a drug and alcohol counselor. Plus, I'm 50 years old, and I'm thinking if I want to really become financially stable in this industry, I was going to have to go to school for another years. I didn't know, but I got a little fearful. So I was telling my wife, listen, I think I should just drop out. And she's like, no, you need to finish. And so I ended up finishing my internship, and she's like, you'll figure it out. Okay. And so what ended up happening was I was doing my internship, and one of the case managers at the program asked me if I could do some work for her in the sober house. And I said, yeah. And so she hired me. I did some work. Her and I had a conversation. I said, listen, I've always had a dream of, helping people and wanting to own a sober house. If you ever want to sell the house or the business, I would be, interested. So she called me a couple months later, and I'm going to give you the turbo version now because John just said I had like 5 minutes left. And so I bought the sober house from her. It was a one-man, an 8-man house, and I didn't realize it, but I fell in love with helping people, and that's the way I want to help people, my way, because we have a great program now. And so we started that sober house. Along the way, my wife got pregnant again, so I have another son, and that was unexpected. And so lo and behold, we started our organization in 2014. And now today we're working on opening up our 7th house. We have like 106 beds. And we have a really, really great program. We're here for the conference. We met John. And this is my life today, man. And I have a career that I love because I love helping men and women get this gift. And it's here. It's here for you guys. All you got to do is make that choice. When you get out, if you want to be successful, you hang with successful people. If you want to keep doing what you're doing, go hang with those people. Sometimes I try to talk about my life and how grateful I am. And sometimes it's just, it's so, you can't put words on it. You can't put words on it. I'll leave you with this. I coach my kids' football team, and this is my first year coaching. and we're going to the championship game on Saturday. And it's like, yeah, we're going to win, I think, man. We got a good shot at winning, but I'm just a very blessed and grateful man. And I want to thank John for allowing me for asking me to speak. John's a great man. You guys are lucky to have him. And I want to thank you guys for listening to me. I know what it's like to be where you're at, and you got a choice, man. And if you have a drug or a drinking problem, the great thing about this is we have the power, right? If we don't pick up that first one, like that guy Lenny said, we don't never have to smoke crack or drink or drug or shoot dope ever again. But once we pick up, we don't have the choice anymore. So I thank you guys for listening tonight.
Rick. All right, that's good job. Yeah, Rick get on a roll there sometime. But a question come up on Facebook, Art, and you can share, I guess, the McShin page. If you want to see this, it's on the McShin page. But I don't know how to share a page. Anyways, our next speaker, wonderful, wonderful man. I met him probably, I don't know, he might know how long ago. How long ago? It was a while back. I met him down in Florida, and my God, the man's incredible. But he's like the energized bunny. I know he don't look like he's 102, but I love you, Rick, man. Give Rick a hand for he's from Florida, man.
How you doing? I'm Rick. I'm an alcoholic. And I got my sober date is June 24th, 1994. I usually start off with how I got there, just so I can fill it in real quick for you. I grew up in a normal family. I didn't have any of the issues that a lot of people I know in recovery have. I had a great father and mother. They worked hard. My father was an engineer, but didn't mean we made a lot of money, but he lived nicely. But when my dad started his own company, we started to learn how to live poor. And my mom worked at Macy's as a switchboard operator to cover the expenses. So I had the experience of living poor, but I was in high school, and so it didn't matter. I played sports. I was a good athlete. I played football, wrestled, lacrosse. And so, so the normal family. And so I get accepted into a nice college, upstate New York, sort of an Ivy League, but Division I football, lacrosse team. I played college football and college lacrosse. I was an All-American lacrosse player. I belonged to a fraternity. I was in college doing a thing. My high school girlfriend, unlike what Rick talked about, my fatherhood started when I was 18 years old. I got married. My girlfriend got pregnant when she was 18. I was a freshman in college. My second child was born when I was a sophomore in college. My third child was born when I was a senior in college. So by the time I got out of college, I had 3 kids. I was 22 years old. And the following year, I had my 4th kid. I was 23 years old with 4 kids and just started my life. I started drinking when I was 14. I drank all the time in terms of relationships with people. I didn't know how to be with people without drinking. You start drinking at 14, you have fun. And so you think fun and drinking, that's it. So then all of a sudden it comes on weekends, it's drinking and fun. And then all of a sudden fun doesn't happen without drinking. And so that happens from 14. Now I'm 23 years old. And all through college and all through all that stuff, drinking, always, sometimes more than others. So drinking and I became part of my life. That was it. And it always had to do with feeling better. I didn't really feel good while I was working. I felt, but I always looked forward to drinking. So his life was hard, but drinking made it easy. So it reminds me that when I drove drinking 100 miles an hour, drinking was a lot easier than when I wasn't drinking. So somehow those crazy things happened when I was drinking. And so from age 23 to 30, I struggled with the 4 kids, trying to find a career, trying to make a living. wound up doing 2 and 3 and 4 or 5 jobs, just everything weekends. So it was a struggle, but I had 4 kids and we were doing our thing. But alcohol allowed me to get through it. It allowed me to come home at night and get half in a bag on the weekends, have a party. So, and of course I drank enough that I would do some stupid shit, but not enough to get me in serious trouble. When I was a young kid, my mom used to tell me, your temper's going to get you in trouble. I had one of those flash tempers that, goes 0 to 100 because somebody pissed me off, and I swing at them, and I was always in fights, and physical stuff was always normal for me. So some release in that, so you can identify people getting fights. I was one of those guys. So here I am at age 30, and I'm still struggling. My kids are now, like getting into high school issues. So I wind up, a friend of mine from high school said, who I knew was doing really well, and he said, why don't you come work with me on Wall Street? I said, that sounds great. So at age 31, I get my first job on Wall Street as a trainee, hanging out with the young guys, the 22-year-olds, and started my career on Wall Street. Became very successful at it. And you measure success by power and money. And those are the 2 things that were driving me. But drinking was one of those things that allowed me to do that too, because I was one of those guys who really wasn't crazy about talking with people and selling anything. But when I drank at lunch, and Wall Street was one of those things, and I'm talking 1971 now, when you took out your customer, which were banks, insurance companies, mutual funds, we're talking millions of kind of dollars stuff. You go and you have lunch, and the old martini lunch game. You used to have big lunches, and all these guys got a lot of money, and all of a sudden the world is different. And so now I go from really being struggling to really start making a lot of money, and drinking became like daily. So every lunch, every after work, on the weekends, drinking. Obviously, that period of time was a little tough on my wife, to say the least. Arguments all the time, doing stupid stuff I shouldn't do. Life was a turmoil for her and for the family, but we were making a lot of money. 25 years go by. And at age 54, by this time I have my own company, making lots of money. And my drinking was at such a stage where I would do things that the company's policy is to do this, and I'm the owner, and I'm doing this. And as a result, I bankrupt the whole thing. I made decisions with millions of dollars while I was drinking. And as a result, took the whole thing down 25 years. The whole thing crashed. In 1991, that was in 1994. In 1991, after 33 years, I left my wife for 33 years. I got my apartment in Manhattan overlooking the Statue of Liberty. She had her 5-acre estate out in Long Island, and we separated. We separated because I just walked out in a drunken state of, this is bullshit. I'm an attitude. Screw her. Treat me like that. That kind of a thing. That's the kind of guy I became. And just all of a sudden, I had nobody to report to in my drinking from 1991 to 1994. So it got worse and worse. So as I said, I made decisions, financial decisions that were horrible for my company and for me. So I lost everything, including all the savings and everything that I had built up over those years, and lost the company. Basically sold it for the debt and walked out bankrupt. My wife, of course, she's not used to, this situation, and she's nuts over it. She sends in forensic accountants. Where did I steal the money? It was a horrible year. in terms of, having lost everything. So I all of a sudden recognized my life's unmanageable. Like, what is going on? And so I go calling around to find a shrink that might be able to explain to me why I'm so screwed up. And I made some calls all around. I lived in Manhattan, as I said. And so I make the call. There's 8 million people in Manhattan, remember. I make a call to find a psychiatrist to make an appointment as soon as possible. I left some messages. An actual doctor called me back and said, we can meet on June 24th, 1924. June 24th, 1994. I said, okay. I go into his office. He says, tell me what the deal is. I explain my business. I explain my wife. I explain, poor me. And he says, how much do you drink? I was like, what? How much do I drink? I drink all the time. What are you talking about? It's like, what's the big deal? He says, look, I'm going to tell you what. You can leave the office now, and you can call AA. And if you go to AA for 90 days and you still think that you need my help, you can come back here. Like, you got to be kidding me, Doc. No, this is it. And so he basically threw me out of his office and told me to go to AA. Now that, in hindsight, is a miracle, folks. God had to do something about putting me in that guy's office, 8 million people on the Upper East Side of Manhattan in that day. So the next day I showed up at my AA meeting on Wall Street. And of course, now I'm committed to not drinking. 2 big issues. One is I don't know how to live without drinking. And 2 is there was something on the wall about having a God in my life. It's like, oh my, I haven't had a God in my life since I was 18 years old, and I'm now 54 years old, and I'm got to not drink and have a God in my life. This was a major obstacle. So I got through the not drinking part by having a lot of pain and detoxing without going to a detox and or to a treatment center. But I didn't know how to live without drinking. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any friends that didn't drink. So I went to my first AA meeting that morning and went to a home group. And I bring this up because the home group fellowship of AA was the thing that saved my life. I went to a 7:30 meeting every day, a noon meeting every day, and a 5:30 meeting every day, which was the times that first I had to get up, but then noon and 5:30 were big time drinking times. And after I got my sponsor, we used to go to meetings all over the 5 boroughs. So an 8 or a 9 o'clock at night meeting in Manhattan. So AA became the only place that I could go without thinking about drinking. And starting to live life with the emotions that come without drinking that I used to hide. Whenever I get in a deal, fuck it, I'll have a drink. Or it got good, great, I'll have a drink. All of a sudden you don't do that. It's an emotional roller coaster, to say the least. So you guys who've been through this know what I'm talking about. But this lasted for 3 or 4 years. And I would go to 3 meetings a day in Manhattan all the time. Now I'm struggling again. Now I'm bankrupt. And, I have a whole new life to find what I'm going to do. I'm 54 years old. And it was a little scary. But in my home group, in hindsight, my sponsor had a girlfriend who was a great girl. And I got to know them really well. And they broke up. And she and I started going out. Got to know each other. So as it turns out, she's now my wife. But that's the one thing God did for me, put me in an AA meeting and showed me a new wife. But we started going out in 1995, and we did a lot of meetings together. By 1999, I'm still struggling, not having a new career, not having any, just trying to find a way to survive. She had a good job, thank God, in Manhattan. We decided to move to Florida. And because in Florida, I was actually putting some mutual fund deals together that I knew how to do, and it was pretty successful. And Florida was a place where I could get the research I needed. And so we decided, you know what, why are we sitting in the cold of Manhattan? We could be down here living in Fort Lauderdale. And so the weather moved us here, but I also had a connection for a possible business. So in 1999, we moved down here. Both my parents died that year, 1999. So I was flying back up and down. I say that only because drinking all of a sudden was not an option in my life anymore. We're now 5 years into it. Parents died, still struggling. What career, what's what? So that was in 99. I was struggling doing real estate. I was doing all kinds of cool stuff, but not really making money, not really having a foothold. So in 2002, this incident happens where also my wife also relapsed after 19 years during that time, which was also very dramatic. We had to split up. And so there was like almost a year of separation and coming back together again. And so in 2002, we had just come back together again. We went to the beach on my 62nd birthday. It was Easter Sunday weekend, and Fort Lauderdale Beach was thousands of people there. Couldn't find a parking space, cars all over cutting each other off, giving people a finger, and, you know, just, it was a horror show. I finally got so frustrated and angry. Remember my mom told me about my temper? Well, it was there. It was off the chart. So I decided, you know, I'm going to sit here in my car and wait for a parking space to open and pull into it. So there's some parking meters, and sure enough, after about 15 minutes, people driving all, it was horrible. A spot opens up, and I decide there's the spot. I pull into the spot. It's the parking meter in front of me, and a lady steps in the spot and goes like that. And I'm going, what is going on now? I was out of my mind. I went out and said, what are you doing? She said she's saving the spot for her husband. There's thousands of cars all around. I said, no, I've been waiting for the spot for 15 minutes, you know. So instead of calling the cop, I'm nuts, right? Now I'm nuts. I get back in my car. I start pulling into the spot with her standing in it. Eventually I hit her. She eventually says, they don't work, and she climbs up on my hood. And she's laying on my hood with her face right here, and I'm out of my mind, and I'm trying to get her off my hood by hitting the brake and hitting the accelerator. And I'm sitting in my bathing suit and my tank top and my flip-flops, and my flip-flop gets caught under the brake when I go to push it, and the car starts rolling, and I get panicked, and I pull my foot out, I hit the accelerator, and wow, we go flying over the curb, through the parking meter, into a fence. And this lady gets her ankle caught between the bumper and the curb, crushed. And all the people around are now nuts trying to, I mean, I'm fighting off people. I think I'm trying to kill this lady. It was a real show. And the cops come, I get arrested. I'm sitting in my tank top, bathing suit in the back of the car. And they take me off after about an hour of investigation, take me off to jail, Fort Lauderdale jail. And it's 50 degrees. You know how jail is. It's cold. And so I'm sitting there freezing my butt off on Easter Sunday Eve on my birthday. And my wife bails me out for Sunday. And for the next 2 years, I fight a charge of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. I'm facing 13 years of prison. And I'd never been arrested in my life. And so I have no idea what this is all about, but I fought it as an accident. I finally decided I would do I plead no contest, and the judge, we go through this whole thing, and we win, and that I get sentenced to 1 year of county jail and 2 years of house arrest, community control. And so when I go into jail, at this point I have 9 years of sobriety. God is a big part of my life now. I had gone through this whole thing of transformation between maybe there is a God or there isn't a God, and the practice maybe there is a God. Let's try that act. And sure, God, once I opened my mind to a God, my spiritual life started to change dramatically. And so from that point on, I started relying on God all the time for everything I did. And so in this case, I'm sitting in my suit and tie, and I'm thinking I'm going to get off, and I get a year, and they come over with the cuffs. And I get, okay, my jacket off, my tie off, and bang, you know how that goes. There you go. And so the courtroom's filled with all my friends and everything, and this isn't happening. But yes, I remember saying right at that moment, well, God, this is going to be an interesting trip right now. This is really going to be something. So I took God with me, and I went into this jail, and I wound up down in Florida, in Broward County. They have this SAP program, substance abuse program. And so I got myself into that. By then I have 10 years sober, and I'm now the coordinator of this substance abuse program. But there's 94 guys in the pod. And so I had the opportunity to help guys do their recovery, particularly do fourth steps and fifth steps, where normally you wouldn't do that. But in jail, you know, there's like sort of like, it's a sanctuary in that regard. You can tell people stuff that you wouldn't tell outside. So I got this great opportunity to do a lot of fourth and fifth, where people could really dump stuff out that they wouldn't necessarily tell other people. It was sort of, blessed that God would put me in that position. I remember the stories. I don't remember the people, but some of the stories are pretty horrifying, I mean, in terms of what people are living through. So I got that experience for that year. And while I was there, because there were so many guys coming and going, I realized that they were doing this recovery stuff, but they had no place to go after. There was only one sober home that people know about, and it was always full. And so the guys would be released, and they'd have no place to go except back to the hood or back to their girlfriend or whatever, the same old shit. So while I was there, I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to open up a recovery house when I get out of here. I had 2 years to spend on house arrest anyway. Where was I going to get a job? What was I going to do? So I asked my sons at this point, who were fairly successful guys themselves on Wall Street. I said, would you guys buy these houses? Because I'm broke, remember, I'm bankrupt. So to buy, and I asked my sons to buy the six apartments so I could live there and open it up as a recovery house. And the places were pretty beat up, but I had 2 years to fix them. And so I lived there, fixed them. And one guy at a time came in, and eventually we had 25 guys there. And we did recovery there. 13 months into that, I'm with the guys in recovery. I can't go anywhere. I got I'm on house arrest. I can go out the door. I can stay here. I got a plan when I go to the store and all that. You know how that all works. 13 months into it, I'm going to an AA meeting, 5:30 meeting, and I put it on my sheet, and I'll be home at 7. So I go to the meeting, and meanwhile at the house there was some incidences going on. So I said, all right, I'll be right back. So I go to the meeting, and I come back home. I had a car. Got home right after the 6:30 was over. I got home like 6:45. I get this call from my probation officer. Where are you? I said, I'm home. She said, home? I'm at the meeting. You're supposed to be at the meeting. I'm at the meeting. Where are you? You're not supposed to be home. You're supposed to be at the meeting. I said, I didn't realize that being home was a violation. She said, it sure is, because I'm here and you're not. So I go, I'm sorry, apologizing. And she hangs up. She's upset. 7:15, I get the call. Where are you? I said, I'm home. She said, come on out. Well, I wasn't in my apartment. I was next door. I walked out of the next door apartment, and she went ballistic. This is insulting, blah, blah, blah. You violated twice now on me in the last half hour. Boom, I go, my next probation meeting, I go there, boom, I get locked up. Your violation of probation, back to jail. So I spent the next 10 weeks fighting the same charge and violating probation. And I was really upset because I've been my judge. She already gave me a break. Now I'm going away for 13 years. This is crazy. And talk about pain and agony. But God was with me, and all I could do is say, if it's going to be. And got me through. I got my sentence back. She put me back on house arrest to finish it out. And that has evolved into turning into that house. We now have 65 apartments, 200 beds, recovery, sobriety. I get to travel to Richmond, Virginia and go see John, and thank you for letting me share. What? About who?
Comrades.
Oh, yeah. Just quickly, while I was not in jail prior to that, I belonged to the Chamber of Commerce, I belonged to the Rotary Club and all that stuff, which we still do now. But the Rotary Club, once I went to jail, now I'm a convicted felon, they don't want you in the club anymore, of course. It's like, it's all businessmen and stuff, big deal. So when I get out, after we have this successful thing, we've been doing this 17 years now. So I get out, and one of my friends who's a judge who belonged today said, why don't you go back to the Rotary Club? It's like, they don't want me there. Well, turns out I'm going to be next year's president of the Rotary Club. So that's it. That's how it works.
Hey, Rick and Rick, come on back up here. This is the part where, in case y'all got any thoughts, comments, or questions, they would be more than delighted to engage y'all. I think they're both very inspiring stories. Both of them have been where you're at. They've turned into a magnificent positive. I mean, that's recovery in action right there. And I'm glad we're able to bring that to you. And I recognize a few of y'all in the audience, and I know some of you like Recovery House Day. And I have to be honest with you, it's much better to be the operators, the owners, and than to be the occupants. So anyways, any thoughts, comments, questions? Just hold the mic up there so they can hear it.
There's a lot of females and men out there that want to be in recovery, and is afraid because they don't have support. They don't have, they don't have stories. They don't have, people like y'all to come and share with them. So I just want to thank, the sheriff office, for allowing the RISE and the MET program and, and the green team and all these other recovery, processes for us. So when we get out there, we can be productive citizens. I did 7.5 years in the penitentiary, and I came home in 2020. I didn't have this, so when I left out there, I went straight back into what I knew, and that was the addiction. So today I am clean I am in recovery for opiates for 2 years and crack cocaine for 90 days. I just want to say, I'm grateful. Hearing y'all stories inspire me and give me the ability to know that I can be able to be y'all, because I want to be able to work in a recovery house. I want to be able to, assist other recovering addicts. I was in the RISE program. I left the RISE because they went to East because they were starting a new program called the MET, and I feel like I would be a better opportunity there because I know I utilized the RISE, and they gave me the opportunity to be in recovery. So now I want to help other girls that need my love and support, to let them know that I've been there, that it's okay. So I just want to thank the sheriff and everyone here for coming and hearing y'all stories, and to know that I can be y'all. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. One thing we all have in common is we all found purpose. And you notice how we all have a story of a service, but you got to be patient. No substitute for time other than time. But all of us, we got our life straight first. We put our time in early recovery. We follow the way. But y'all are lucky because we're in 2022 and we have an industry that is craving for peers, recovering folks to get into the industry and help other people. So we had to wait years, most of us, before we got into this industry, but y'all can bounce into it pretty quick. We got a couple folks with us tonight. Monique, why don't you come up and tell us how quick you jumped into this peer service stuff?
Okay. Hey, you guys, I'm Monique. I'm a certified peer recovery specialist, and I'm the peer community and program liaison at the McShin Foundation. I went through the intensive program, and I was always very vocal about things that I did and didn't like, right? Because I know everything. I have like 30 days clean, you know? So I had all these things that I wanted to change. And I was thankful that McShin wants to hire peers and wants to hire alumni. So I was able to get an AmeriCorps position at first. And that way I was able to put my input into the women's curriculum, help diversify things and make it more inclusive, which then turned into a full-time position now that I will be coming up on in a year next month, and I have 19 months clean and sober.
So
So
that's a fast ride.
yeah, it was pretty awesome. And I'm just really thankful. For me, I had tried to kind of go into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous before, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a little culty to me, you know. And it was very God centered. And I'm a PK. My dad is a pastor, and he's also in AA 30 years, and I just wasn't really feeling it, and I wasn't like keen on the treatment idea of doctors telling me like without any experience what's going to help me. And then I just remember meeting John and seeing what they had at McShin, and it was a bunch of people that had the same experiences as me. You know, like our stories might not be the exact same story, but I can pick something from everyone's story that resonated with me. And I was like, okay, if anyone is going to tell me how I can get clean and how I can stay sober, it's gonna be someone that did it.
And you have a coworker with you tonight.
I
Invite your coworker up. Say hello.
So Esther is amazing. She actually is with Recovery Corps at the Office of Recovery Services.
Coworker up. Come on, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Esther, and I'm working at the Offices of Recovery Services as a recovery project coordinator. And I'm just so grateful to even be here today. I was sitting there and I was getting all emotional, like I'm a crier nowadays, which is something that I will always run from. But it's like, I think of like time, like John said, and we always say this acronym of things I must earn. Things I must earn. And it's like the longer I have stayed in this program, I also went through the intensive program, and there was many times I wanted to leave. You know, I wanted to leave, and I just kept hearing like, stay, you know, just stay and just do the work, just stay. And I've been there for 6 months, and I've gotten this position. I mean, not just my life is recovering, but my family's life is recovering. You know, I have a close relationship with my mother. Just the opportunity to even just come here and just spread that hope, you know, because I remember how I was hopeless, you know, just a few months ago. I didn't see my life going anywhere. I didn't see any purpose of my life. I didn't, you know, I had so much pain in me, so much anger in me, you know, and it was God moments where God intervened, you know, and just showed me through people, you know, just believing in me and praying for me, you know, that he really truly has a purpose for each and every one of us, you know. But it's like, and even just to find that purpose in the things that I've been through, you know, that yes, I went through that, but it's given me that compassion, that understanding to be able to serve, to be of service, you know. And for my daughter, who I neglected for so long because of my addiction, you know, she's there to see me, you know, doing the work that I do now, you know. And it's like, it's a message to even her that you can overcome, you know, once you're tired and you've had enough, you know, once it's enough is enough is enough, you know, and you make sure in your mind, like, I want different, and you have the resources there to do it. There's nothing you cannot do. And it's been 6 months, and I'm over there at the offices as a recovery project coordinator. Like, I don't even, I'm like,
hey,
thank you.
It gets better. Rick got some backup down from Connecticut. Y'all come up here and say hello real quick. Hurry up. You stay standing, Esther. Get the old guy up here, too. What's his name?
He's coming.
Yeah. Just a little shout out. I mean, hey, keep in mind, one thing we all got in common is we all want to carry that message of hope, but we all have purpose, and that's important to remember that. Say hello. Just take a minute.
Hello.
Hold that up.
All right, so how you guys doing? My name's Mike. You know, similar stories, a lot of these guys. Got to get back in the crowd, right? That's how you do it. You stay in the crowd, honestly. But yeah, so I actually moved into Rick's house just about 6 years ago. And just like pretty much everyone in here, man, I was rough shape, right? I couldn't do nothing right. I could get here right.
You still can't.
Man,
Yeah.
that was what I could do, though. I knew how to fuck things up, right? I knew how to get in trouble. Excuse me. But I got to that house, man, and, you know, Rick was there, and I remember I met him within, I think, an hour of being at his house. And I talked with the guy, and what these guys say, you know, and I know all three of these guys now a little bit. That's how it works, right? One act helping another. I walked in there, I talked. They said, what do you want to do? And the good thing was I was actually at a house that Rick had been at in his past. And that house, you know, up in our area, everybody knew it. It was very, very strict, very structured, but it was very simple. It was like, look, man, you ain't doing it right, you know? If you do it our way, and this is the way, your life will be beautiful. And I told him that was what I was going to do. And
Now look at you.
Now
You're
look
running
at
a recovery organization.
proved it, yeah. So now we're, you know, some years passed. Now I went down, there were two little Stop and Shop bags. But, you know, now we're almost 6 years later. Now I'm working with Rick full time. You know, when I lived at his house, he helped me. He was one of the guys that helped me, man. I started my own business. So even if I didn't take this path, like I still had a pretty good life, man, coming out of there. And it was really simple, man. I went there. The guys that were before me that had what I wanted, I did what they did. And I know that's available for everyone because, like I said, I can still make a mess.
You get what you get when you do what you do. You do active addiction related stuff, you get active addiction related results. You do recovery related stuff, you get recovery related results. And
absolutely.
And, you know, let the old guys talk. Huh?
What else? I mean, my fortune teller here, right? So I had a problem, right? I chased all the ladies around, but then I stopped. Then I found a nice one a couple years into it.
Married? You got married.
We're almost there. She got the ring. But Rick, you know, I'll give him that. Rick predicted the whole thing. Now, same thing, man. I was 40. You know, I had a daughter. I never had a kid. I thought that ship had sailed. But it ain't, and it's beautiful. You know, I was just looking at her in the back there.
Got a baby.
Got a
20
baby.
20 months.
Don't mess it up. Come here, Pop.
I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I traveled with these guys from Connecticut. You know, I wonder what an old white guy would have in common with y'all. And the truth is, I sat in my front seat of my car and I looked at my phone and it had 32 voicemails. I didn't want to answer any of them because I was too scared. I was too drunk. I was too high. And at that moment, I said, you know, this has all got to change. And I asked for help. Now, this is almost mystical, but I'm in my car and the windshield said, drive this way. And I followed that and it took me home. And this is home where I want to be. It's being with you and you and you and you and you and you and you, because these are all good people. Now, I've been a lawyer for 46 years. I retired July 1st. I went to work for him July 2nd. In the last 3 months, I've had more fulfillment, more rewards, more love, more fellowship than I had in all those years. This is home, and I welcome you to it.
Thank you. Yeah, Marshall.
Yeah. Again, my name is Marshall. I'm an addict. My takeaway, and I love coming into the jails because that's part of my foundation. My takeaway from Rick and Rick is, man, this thing is a process. You don't leave here and the next day you all of a sudden fall in love with yourself. If I was to ask most of y'all, do you love yourself now? The answer would be yes. You know, but what you don't see or what you don't visualize, there is some additional room for you to grow and love yourself. And if you listen to their story, there were times during their stories where they didn't love themselves. They probably saying the same thing that I said. Oh yeah, I love myself. I love myself. You know what I'm saying? And then you go back and you look once they started to finding out from this fellowship things about themselves, then they realized that they didn't love themselves as much as they thought they did. Hey, John, what is fear?
False evidence appearing real, FEAR.
False evidence appearing real. And that's a process that all of us go through. You know, our reality ain't always reality. You know, it takes a process, man. When you come to a place like this, it takes a process for you to find out who you are and how much you really love yourself. I heard Rick talk about it, man. When his child was born, that's when the love started flourishing. You know, I heard the other Rick talk about it, man, when God came into his life. That's when the love started to flourish. You know, so it ain't a magic wand just automatically touches us because we come into a program, we leave here, you know, we heard Esther talk about it. It's some work involved, you know. Just remember that, man. It's some work
But the blessing can come quick. Yes, sir. You got something in the back. Marshall gonna bring the mic to you. Well, it's for the Facebook people.
Oh, yeah. My name James. This was like the best. This was the worst but best thing that ever happened to me getting locked up. Like I don't really like jails and institutions or none of that, you know. And I done heard about the hopelessness. I done heard about the suicide. I felt that way. You know what I mean? A lot of the times, the loving yourself. I never said that. Like I know I wasn't loving myself. You know what I mean? I'm learning how to love myself. I always love people more than I love myself. But like this was the greatest opportunity I had. Like, and I ain't see it that way at first. Like, cause things won't move in the way I wanted it to move. I wanted it to happen. And life not microwavable, I had to develop some patience. But being with these group of guys that y'all looking at, like, this is the greatest experience that I got to have all the times I've been to prison. Like, and it's like a big family. We don't always get along, but they always been my greatest support group. Like whenever I'm going through stuff, they take their time out to come and see how I'm feeling or what's going on or how my day went. When my family don't even do that. So that means a lot to me. You know, like, I had the opportunity to get a license at 45 years old. I never had a license. And it wouldn't have happened had I wouldn't have got locked up. You know what I mean? Like, I decided I just don't want to live like that no more. Like, the pain just too great. And life do get better. You know what I mean? But it's keeping in contact with dudes. Like, I like talking to them. You know what I mean? Everything that we got in common is pain. Like, we can relate on that. If we can't relate on nothing else, we can relate on pain. Like, pain is the same to everybody. It hurt. And so, you know, growing through that and having people to support and love you and people to give you opportunities like Sheriff and you guys, like, it mean a lot, man. It really do. You know what I mean? So I ain't believe in God in a long time, but I know that it's some working outside of me and it ain't me. You know what I mean? Like, this happening without my permission.
Yeah, what you got going on here, you are actually proof that when you come to a facility, if you got to do jail time, the sheriff has created an environment conducive to recovery, okay? She has humanized the experience here for y'all best she can within the parameters of the laws and the guidelines. She's got a recovery-oriented system of care in this jail. You get all the benefit you can get by being part of this, but you guys are actually responding and rising to the call of recovery. That is amazing. And I'm glad we get to witness that. You know, you witnessed our recovery, we witnessed your recovery. So this is a good thing. And I wish more jails in Virginia and in the nation would humanize the experience for those who want recovery and ask for it and seek it. So this is one of the purposes we do this type of event we do. We want the whole nation to know and understand when an addict and an alcoholic asks for help, you want that hand to be there no matter where you're at or what your situation, because all of y'all are going to be back out in the community soon enough. And we want a healthier recovering person out there, okay? So, Sheriff, I'm just excited and just really blessed to see what's taking place here. So you keep that up too, you know. Give her a hand for that. Yes. You got a hand up.
My name's Steve. Speaking on the program and stuff, I told the sheriff, I'll probably cry too, but this program saved me, my unborn child, and my fiance, what she offers through her. When I got locked up, my fiance got locked up with me. She was 32 weeks pregnant. She went into labor at 216 upstairs. They took my daughter home. She had to come back here. I stayed. But because of this program, my family.
You keep your mic in one place. You can do the other
My
arm.
family has a chance at life. And it started here. Don't have to be outside. If you're incarcerated, start to work while you're here, man. You don't have to wait till you get out. All you guys offering resources out there, man, that's great, you know, and I appreciate that. But like what the sheriff's offered here, honestly, you know, I met my daughter the first time 3 weeks ago, right over there. As Rick was saying,
God giving you an opportunity to be the father you know you can be, okay?
Yeah.
And that's a good hit.
Today, you know, right over there, my daughter comes up here, my stepson comes up here, my fiance was up here, and we're having a pizza party playing balls at the little table behind us. If it weren't for what was offered here, that chance wouldn't have happened. So everything, you know, happened for a reason.
Well, thank you. It's a work night, right? Anybody got any last words of wisdom?
Yeah, Rick said it earlier that being incarcerated, he turned it into a positive experience. And the same thing can happen for everybody here today. You can turn this into something.
But Rick also said he don't know why none of this is happening to him, but he's gonna trust God. God got a big picture. And now look where God brought him up here to Henrico County. Any last words, Sheriff? We good? Oh God, she got the mic now.
Not gonna talk soon. I got another engagement. But just very grateful. You know, I have from day one when I walked into the jail to work, I knew that I had my purpose. And like I said before, there is nothing we can't do together. I want you to realize that together, that you need people, like-minded people going in the same direction that you're going in. And I'm so grateful for John and others that come to be able to show you, give you life, real life exposure to somebody that has done what we know you can do.
Right.
So again, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And like, we're gonna keep moving towards our best selves.
That's right. Thank you for y'all were very good tonight. Thanks. We'll be back here a week from Tuesday. We're going to be out at Jail East next week. And as always, from the staff and board at McShin, thank you very much. Thank you all you guys for participating. Don't forget to go to our homepage and hit us up, and more be revealed. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.